We are recording now.
First episode.
First episode. Welcome back, everyone, to our first, welcome to the first episode of the Locked Off Logic podcast with Tyler and Sam. With our first guest, the co-host of the show, Sam Sargeant. Sam, how you doing, man?
You know, for a redhead, can't complain too much.
Yeah,
It's pretty good.
I was even thinking, do I even ask you that question? Because we just had the steak dinner, which is awesome. We had shrimp bread. We had vegetables. Well, I guess you had ribs.
Yeah.
So I guess we're doing pretty well.
For the most part.
Good.
Yeah, man.
Well, I'm excited to start this adventure with you. Welcome everybody to our first episode, and I'm really excited to start off this interview with Sam, my good friend I've known for a long time. I have some questions for him. I'd love for Sam to take us into his journey. I've told him this, a lot of different times where he really is an example to me on someone that just actively pursues their dreams. And I feel like through actively pursuing your dreams, it's led us to this moment to now we get to talk about inspiring stories inside the theater and outside the theater. And so I think we're starting out with one of the most, maybe not the most, but one of the most inspiring stories in our co-host, Sam Sargeant.
Oh, well. You might have overhyped me.
No, sir.
Well, and I have to say, I was kind of expecting it to be you. We were doing this for you tonight. So the swap is catching me
out of off guard.
Caught me off guard, which may be a good thing. That might be a good thing. But I guess before that, and maybe this will exist somewhere else, but what is this podcast? And what are we trying to aim with it? Just so that people who are listening going, well, why the fuck should I listen?
Yeah, no, that's a good question. I guess
disclaimer. There's going to be language.
Oh yeah. Well, it's just you can't. I mean, some of the stuff that we talk, we were just having this, this amazing dinner to where, the conversations that we had, about the movies that we enjoy, the stories that inspire us, the stories that make us sad, that cause us to rethink the way we think the world. I don't think there's any way to do this except just being 100% genuine. And so, yeah, if you got kids in the car, maybe not. This isn't the podcast. Maybe for you parents that have kids in the car and listening on the way to work, it's one that you can run to, one that you can listen to by yourself. Or if your kids swear, then let them listen to it because they're going to hear it. They're going to hear it in middle school anyway, so might as well hear it from us. But I think about I wanted to do this forever because me and Sam we went to college together. Sam in college was, the kid. We went to the same church, and he was just the kid everybody liked. And me too. I mean, he's just a friendly kid. He's a nice kid. He was in a position in the church where I think you had to meet a lot of people. I think, if I'm not mistaken, on your position at the church, and so just a lot of people gravitated toward him with his personality, and I did as well. And that's where I saw his first. Well, that's what got your interest in filmmaking, because you worked filming different devotionals, different speeches that were happening at the university. And then I think the first conversation that we had when I went into your room was you had just a bunch of Guardians of the Galaxy stuff. And, Marvel's a topic that we'll touch on in this podcast. Sam's he's grown dark on superhero movies. I'm still on the ship. But, Sam described Guardians of the Galaxy specifically in a way that I'd never thought of before. Now that, I like this guy. This is a good guy. And he told me his thoughts on Guardians based on the characters that were being portrayed in the film. And, Sam, we live fairly close to each other. We have this tradition to where we go. We have our movie nights. We order pizza instead of get popcorn sometimes. And we go to the movies and we talk about it afterwards on ways that it affected us. Sam is a professional cinematographer by trade. And this podcast, it's just, we sat down over the holiday break in 2024, and we were discussing just film and movies and video games and people that inspired us. And we were just this conversation we're having is so good we need to record it because other people need to hear it. Other people need to hear what we're talking about. People need to hear about these stories, how it's affecting us, how it's influencing us. How do we want to be better after we leave the theater, we leave these people? Because I think Sam and I, you'll hear more about his story and my story in the next episode. But we've had the blessing and the privilege to travel the world, to meet a lot of interesting people, and to see a lot of different movies. And there's just some that just hit you different. There's just something about you connect with a character, you connect with a film, you're inspired by, stepping in the shoes of a video game character, or you meet people who their life needs to be a movie because the life that they're living is almost as good as what you'll see in the cinema. And so, honestly, for me, people should tune into the Locked Off Logic podcast. For one, is that it's unique perspective from someone who's a cinematographer and then someone who's an activist. We consume movies very differently. I was telling my mom about this when I was like, "Yeah, we're starting a podcast with Sam." She was like, "Well, what's the catch?" It's like, "Well, we're two different people that talk about these different kinds of media." And Sam, he views media obviously as an art form because he's an artist. He's a cinematographer. He takes something out of nothing and makes it into art. And for me, I consume movies because I'm just a consumer of movies, and I go to movies and TV shows and media to find inspiration on my everyday life. But that means like some movies, like The Northman, to me are incredibly boring, and for you is really good, is really exciting. So that's what makes it unique. This different podcast. Two, the conversations that we have, the experience that we have, and the characters that we study, I feel like can give a lot of inspiration to a lot of different people, make them view the world, make them view media in a different light to where, let's say you're watching Arcane, you're not just watching a cartoon, you're watching something that is a study on trauma, a study on society as a whole between the first world and the developing world. And because we have that conversation, we're able to look at media in a different light. And the thirdly, and probably the most selfish, is I really like hanging out with my buddy Sam and talking about things that interest me, that inspire me, and the people that do the same. And so the more time I can spend with Sam, the better human being I am.
That's very, very generous. Very generous. Yeah. Echoing a lot of that stuff, I have to chuckle because it was like I come in with, dropping the F-bomb like right away, and then the story you start about. I met Sam at church.
Well, I did meet.
You know what? But like, I think the reality is like churchgoers can say fuck.
Yeah.
Right. And
they do.
And they do. And
it's okay.
It's okay.
Yeah. It's fine. Just a word.
I guess I'm not like an actively going churchgoer, but like I am an active believer in, whatever I believe in. And that ebbs and flows, to be honest. But anyways, like not to get into that right now, but I just find it funny that was the introduction.
But we can though, because this is what's so beautiful about media is that films like Heretic open up that conversation to have for someone that's maybe going through, I don't want to call it a faith struggle. I don't know if I'd call it a struggle, but it's a journey, a faith journey, someone exploring their faith. And media, like we talked about at dinner, can give meaning and can help people feel seen in different struggles that they have.
Yeah, for sure. Well, and like, I guess to give a little my side of the story too, like that, right? Yeah, we were going to undergrad and we were in the same apartment complex and Tyler was next door. And Tyler also was someone that, in my opinion, was like very well liked and very, very like popular. Like every Sunday it was like dozens of people stacked into a room to watch The Walking Dead. Like,
yeah, that was a good time. Walking Dead nights.
Yeah, Walking Dead nights. But and Tyler already talked about him being like an activist. Like he was very engaged in like doing things of helping like the community or kids. I guess what what is now, and correct me if I'm wrong, but what is now Libertas uh, was once Gifts of Grace, which is the first activist side of Tyler that I met, which essentially is the same, but the names have changed. Anyways, I was able to participate in a few things with Tyler on that. And he's just a good dude. And um, we managed to just stay in contact over the years after graduation. And then, I mean, I moved, we met in Idaho. You went to
I went to Wyoming.
Wyoming,
Yep.
and then I went to California, and then uh, you went to Utah. Then I came back to Utah, which is where I'm from. And then yeah, we do movie nights and grab a bite to eat and just shoot the shit and talk about life and uh, you know the things that kind of draw meaning or have meaning like in our lives with the experiences we have. And like we love movies, we love talking about movies. Um, so yeah, so we're like, I was like, yeah, why don't I've always wanted to do a podcast for a long time, but I just haven't. Um, and you talked about it. And we're like, well, let's just do this. And so we're like, okay, well, what's it look like? Anyways, we're still figuring that out, but like, might as well start from something. And as you can tell, like, where are we sitting right now? Like, this is in my garage. Originally, we were like, oh, garage talk.
Yeah.
But those bastards took it first. So
Yes.
I'm sure they're fine. Sure, you're fine, garage talk. Fuck you. Just kidding.
But next time we'll have a table, right? How we have like this like chair.
Yeah, we're building.
But next time we'll have a table, we'll have probably like a drink stand.
Real progress.
Yeah.
It may or may not be in the garage.
Yeah.
But also it's kind of
Cool.
It's kind of interesting.
Yeah.
And I have to admit, like as a cinematographer, for those who don't know what that is, like a cinematographer is the right hand man or woman to the director, the visual advisor, and we help the director's vision come to life on screen through the camera. And I'm a bit of a perfectionist, so like I'm like, oh, we have this overhead lighting that's like really kind of harsh and there's light everywhere. I guess there's some interesting shadows on the back, which is kind of nice. That breaks it up. Anyways, point being, I'm like I'm thinking about it way too hard and I'm judging it way too hard. When it's just like, well, no, let's just do it. Let's just do it. Like, and it'll be fine. And it is fine.
There's like some like cool humanity with it too. Like one of my favorite podcasts is called The Weekly Planet. And like you hear like there was one episode where like the guy's kid came in asking for a quote like big sandwich. And that's what their Patreon is called now, is Big Sandwich, because the kid came in and interrupted. Or like this, like when his dog comes in, like scratch the door, you can hear him scratch the door. Dog comes in, hangs out for a bit, barks, gets let out. Like it's very genuine. It's very humane. It's very, very real. Like we had to wait to start this thing for what, like 20 minutes because your
My water softener was running its cycle and it was just loud as shit.
yeah.
It's like I'm like,
awesome.
dude, we can't roll through this.
No.
it's gonna pick.
No, and now that it's off, you can tell how quiet it is.
Oh, it's so quiet. But yeah, and then also like one of the reasons I wanted to start a podcast for a while is because I feel like I've always had trouble just explaining things or talking things out loud to people, like my ideas and my thoughts. And I'm like, well, a podcast would help me with that. I think. I hope that the listening experience is much better in a later episode than it is right now. And hopefully more ums will be gone and all of those things. But it's a good challenge for me to figure out how I can express myself clearly and express the ideas in my head, but in words and in a conversation that's digestible. So anyways, I'm kind of like excited about that, looking forward to that. And then just figuring out like either solidifying the things that makes sense to me or I believe in terms of like what media I ingest or view and how it affects me, and why I think the way I do, or totally having that changed based on your thoughts or your views on it or your opinions on it. Um, and because with film, like it's subjective. It's an interesting thing where I feel like a lot of people, if they don't like something, they've fallen into the trap of it's automatically bad. If they don't like it, it's bad. And it's like, no, if you don't like it, figure out why you don't like it. And is it just because it's different? It doesn't make sense to you. It's not the way that you process things. You don't agree with it. Doesn't mean necessarily that it's bad. There are some things I think we probably could universally agree on.
Raven, Raven the Hunter, Morbius,
Bad.
anything Sony related is just bad.
Whoa! Hey, I'm a big Sony fanboy.
Okay.
But that's Sony big picture.
Ah, okay.
The Morbius, the Craven,
The Spum, the Spider-Man cinematic, the Spum.
Well, I really liked the Amazing Spider-Man.
I did too.
And Amazing Spider-Man 2. Not a lot of people liked.
I liked it,
and it got canned, obviously, since all of these other Spider-Mans. Into the Spider-Verse.
Very good. That's one of the best superhero movies of all time.
I agree. Right.
And the animation in that.
Sony Pictures.
Yeah.
So
just the Spum. Just the ones that did the Spum.
So anyways, so yeah, hopefully that like gives a brief introduction to like what we're doing, what this podcast is about. And like also there might be things, this is me going, how do I protect myself from being canceled into the future? There might be things I say now that I totally believe differently later. I'm not opposed to being wrong. But so for all of you folks out there who eventually listen to the things I say and go, oh, I can't believe you think this way, you think that way. Maybe my mind will change, and maybe it won't. Who knows?
But disclaimer, we get to decide.
Yeah.
So I guess like you talked about just like your experience with film. One of the questions I had is that did you always know you wanted to be a cinematographer, or when did that kind of like when did you make the conscious decision of this is what I'm going to do for the rest of my life? Because like I know you, I know how hard you work, I know what you do to like get jobs, I know the type of just the kind of life that you live when you're swamped, and it's a busy life, and that camera's not lightweight. I think it's big.
Yeah, it can be.
So like, what's the moment where you were like, I want to do this? Did you have a moment like that, or?
Yeah, I think so. I think I know which moment it was, but it also was a collection of moments. And to go way, way back, I never knew really like right away I wanted to be a cinematographer, but I always knew that I want to be so involved in movie making, filmmaking. I mean, as a kid, I was just mesmerized by films, and I feel like I have this memory like in the summer dollar movie. It was a dollar movie theater. I remember dollar dollar theater over in Provo, right next to like the quarry climbing place that's torn down now, which is unfortunate. But my mom would like just drop me off with like $7,
That's cool.
and I would like go to movie after movie after movie, and I just remember sitting in that theater as a kid, just like being mesmerized and amazed and totally immersed into these stories. And I think in a way it was a bit of an escape from reality that I don't think I realized I needed, but I definitely did growing up. But I just loved, and I wanted to be an actor. And I don't know, for whatever reason, like the Hollywood lights and the Hollywood sign was so mesmerizing to me, and it was just so alluring. Like I'm gonna be an actor today or one day, and I always thought, man, I'm gonna be like bigger than Brad Pitt. That's true physically, but not, but not stature or fame. But I wanted to be an actor, and so you know, I did a little bit of I did like a bunch of like impromptu stand up. Oh, shit, what is that called? Improv.
Oh,
I did a lot of improv like in middle school. Had a lot of fun with that. Got like like the male drama student of the year, and like there was these plays, and it was kind of at an interesting time, and maybe we'll delve into this later. But like, there's a point in my life. I was like 11 or 12. My parents got divorced, and like my love for that didn't turn off, right?
No, it didn't.
Okay, great. Um, my love for everything creative just kind of died. Um, and so I didn't want to act. I didn't want like write. I used to write a lot. A big imagination, and all of that just kind of died and went away during all of that. And like there was, and maybe it was all meant to be, and maybe my trajectory would be totally different. But there was a play that the drama teacher was like that ran this play, and it was this big Shakespearean play at the middle school that was every year. I think that year it was Taming of the Shrew, uh, but um, everyone had to audition. It was a very fair process, but she was just like, all you had to do was show up in the room and say, "Hi, my name is Sam," and she goes, "Here's your part." And she told me that, but I just didn't do it because I just there was a side of me that creative side kind of died for a little bit, and I think I was pretty self. I had some self confidence and conscious issues and or self image issues, especially with kind of things that was happening as a kid. That happened to kids when their parents divorced, right? Um, and didn't do anything creative for a long time, for like years, it feels like, and then slowly started getting a little bit more interested in kind of acting and filming. But I would make dumb videos with buddies from high school, and then I would act in them. But then I would like transition to more of editing, and then I did edit. So then I started to edit a bunch of stuff in high school, and I was on the post production side, and I started doing that into college, um, and uh, did a little filming, a little bit, but mostly editing. So it was all kind of behind the scenes from there. A couple years went by. Um, I had an old high school teacher who gave me a DSLR camera, an old one that he had, and I kind of was like, oh yeah, like I'm gonna use that, and I held on to it for like a year and a half, and I just never did anything with it. Um, and then there was this trip that my undergrad was doing to the United Kingdom, and I got this big idea. I'm like, oh, how can I go on this trip for free? Well, I'll tell them like I will make a video about it and film it, and they can share it to other students to help bring it. So kind of talked my way into that, and they're like, okay, cool. And then I had to like go, oh, I gotta not figure out how to film this stuff. And like the basics I understood, but it was there in the UK looking through the viewfinder of the camera where I started like finding my home in a sense. As a kid, I always had these moving images in my mind. Like my imagination was always like these very specific visuals of how things played out, whether people were telling me stories or reading a book or listening to music. It was just this very specific way of how things were displayed in my mind. And then when I looked through the viewfinder of a camera, I was like, holy shit,
This is it.
this is how I have seen the world in my brain like my whole life. And it just kind of felt so familiar, and um not not to like I look back at it now and I go, that was pretty garbage. But at the time, I felt like, dang, I'm actually like, I have an eye for this. And I think I absolutely did. Um, some stuff doesn't hold up for sure, but other stuff, I'm like, damn, I was doing that like from the first time I picked up a camera. But it was just because I had already seen it in my head. And that's really what like cinematography doing is like taking what you're imagining in your head of this world or whatever, and then bringing it to life in front of the camera. So, anyways, then, uh, and I was working a couple university jobs that was doing editing and filming, and I came back from that, and I was like, oh, I want to shoot more. So I started shooting more, and then there was a guy named Owen Kent, who was like he was like he was the first cinematographer that I had ever met, and to give you like an image of when I say a cinematographer versus like a videographer. They're two very different roles, very similar but very different. And I'm not going to say one is better than the other, but I tended to fall more into the cinematographer side of things, and people may disagree with this, but like a great definition for it is like a videographer covers things and a cinematographer reveals things. And so, Owen, he just was like this magician in my head, and I was like, wow, all of this stuff just was different than everybody else's, and I was like, that's more of what I want to do. That's the direction I want to go in. Started doing a few things with him, but then he graduated. Then I got an internship in Los Angeles, and I went to Los Angeles at a fire station, Los Angeles County Fire Station, and I was filming and editing uh, content for them, which was quite a bit actually, because them in New York City are basically the two hubs where every fire station in the nation basically looks for training and education. Um, just because of sheer volume of both places, and how much fires happen like in those areas, right? That there's just more experience there. So, and the fire captain happened to be a film director, only in Los Angeles.
That's great.
Shout out to Ted. Ted, why aren't we at lunch right now? Um, so then I came back from that, but I edited a lot. And I did a lot of editing, and I loved editing. I don't think I really said how much I loved it. I loved editing. And I did so much editing there, and I just was like, I'm so over editing. I hate it. I don't want to do it anymore. And I left the internship, and I came back to my boss, and I was fully expecting to like be fired or some sort of pushback. But I came back and like, Michael, I'm not editing anymore. I'm just going to shoot. And he was like, okay. Hey, Kate, Kyle, you guys are going to take on more editing. And I was like, okay,
Okay.
all right. Um, and I don't know if they will ever hear this, but Michael was a big mentor. Christian at the university was a big mentor. And there was another guy named Matt. Matt was a fantastic audio guy. But he I applied at this position many times, and Michael finally hired me. Matt was always like, why are you hiring this kid? And then a few years later, Michael told me that story, and he was like, yeah, I was wrong. I was like, yeah, you were.
Good.
Anyways, now I sound like a narcissistic individual. I might be.
No, I don't get that vibe at all, bro.
Anyways, I digress. So then I just started shooting, and I didn't really edit anymore, and just continued to like fall in love with that. And I was doing a lot of free work, like on bigger commercial shoots as a production assistant. I did like 3 years for free as a production assistant. And then like overnight basically swapped into camera department because I was shooting stuff on my own. I was shooting stuff at like kind of like, videographer jobs and shit. But um there was a show that started, and it basically took so many people, so many crews, especially in the camera department, especially in this local area, and they just didn't have any camera assistants. And they're like, "Hey, you do camera, right?" I'm like, "Oh yeah, yeah, totally." Like, why don't can you pull focus? Can you be a camera assistant? I said, "Yeah, yeah, I can do it." And so overnight, then it was like overnight working as a PA for free for like 3 years, and doing all this other like side corporate smaller video jobs, to then being a first AC on these larger commercial things, starting to make some money. And I was like, oh wow, you can make some money in this. And then there's like the traditional route of working up into cinematography from like, we don't have much anymore, but loaders for film days. There was a loader, and then that was a second camera assistant, which does a lot of logistics and does the slate, and then the first camera assistant, which runs the camera department underneath the cinematographer, organizes all the equipment, schedules it all, maintains it all, but then also pulls focus and makes sure the image is in focus. And then there's the cinematographer. So it's kind of a chain of demand, and traditionally that's how you worked your way up as a cinematographer. Things nowadays are pretty different. That still exists. The traditional way still exists, but nowadays, because things are so accessible and the quality of it's so good, it was like if you're not shooting, then the other person that wants to is, and they're going to take your spot. And so I was always like, someone else is going to take my spot if I don't just shoot. Um, and then it was like, do I stay in this local community and keep rising up the ladder naturally, or do I apply to film school? And it's a little more traditional route. Film school is not required for film. In fact, a lot of people will probably say it's a waste of time and money. I disagree with that, but I also don't disagree with it. For me, I would go back and do it again. But it's hard for me to say, yeah, you should go to film school.
Do you feel like you learned something at film school, or do you feel like it was more of like the discussion of like film itself and like the study of film? Or
for me, yeah, film school was monumental for me.
okay.
For multiple reasons. One, I didn't have like the confidence to feel like I was a cinematographer and that like I could do it. And I was hoping film school would be the place where I could do that in an environment that I could grow. But I didn't want to just go to any film school. I wanted to go to the best. And if I didn't get into those, then I wasn't going to do it.
Yeah.
Um, the other thing is the network is massive. The network that I got plugged into was fantastic, and still today, like, is benefiting me like crazy. Um, so there's that, and then yeah, I mean, just the condensed time in learning and doing things in those 3 years that I went. I went to Chapman University, and I mean that was like 10 years. Like 10 years, if I would have stayed at my local spot, what I had in those 3 years genuinely would have been like a 10 year on my own scenario. So it was a way where it just like fast tracked my development and uh, on my first thesis film, this is when this was the moment where I knew I was going to be a cinematographer. I guess I kind of passed the point in which you asked me, was there a moment?
The moment.
The moment.
But the story's good too.
So,
the story's good too.
Pause there.
Okay.
I'm going to backtrack a little bit. This was before going to film school. I was still in my undergrad, and I was like, do I want to do this? Do I not? And it was Christmas Day at my undergrad. I had just I stayed up there. It's a quiet, empty college town, Rexburg, Idaho, especially during winter. And it was just me, basically, in the entire apartment complex. Maybe a couple others. But it's Christmas Day, and I hadn't seen Secret Life of Walter Mitty.
That was one of my questions.
And I watched The Secret Life of Walter Mitty, and I was just so enthralled by that story, like on a personal level, but also in like a career level, where I was like, I want to be a cinematographer, and I have to go all in. And it was like the moment where Walter is leaving the bar after the drunk pilot is like, oh, I know where they are. They're on this boat, but I gotta fly over here. And he's like, but you're drunk. He's like, well, helicopter's leaving. You're either coming or you're not. And so it's this crazy. It's like this. It's crazy to even the idea that, oh, let's go on a helicopter with a drunk pilot over the ocean, right?
Yeah.
Anyways, there's this moment, and it's like the slow motion, and he's walking. He's walking out of the thing, and he starts to run, and Major Tom starts playing, and he jumps on the plane, and he grabs it, and he just like the camera is coming through the helicopter is open, and he jumps and he holds it, and it takes off, and he's just like oh my gosh, I'm doing this, and there's no turning back, and it was like, oh, that's it, I have to do this. Um, and it was like that moment where I was like, okay, I'm gonna commit to doing this cinematography thing. It's really kind of the only thing that I even have like a thought about, to be honest, other than just like being in filmmaking. There was no other options, but narrowing it into what in filmmaking and cinematography, it was like that was it.
It's so fascinating because I've never heard your story like in this much depth. Because like at this point in the story, like you and I were separated. Like the Rexburg stuff I know because I was there. But at this point, like the whole California thing and the internships, like at this point, I was, at the University of Wyoming or who knows where at this point. Um, and in preparation for this podcast, like it was some of my marketing material. I was like, well, I have my favorite media, like the video game or TV show or whatever. And I was like, well, what was Sam? And, I made some guesses, and I went 0 for 3. I think I asked you what your favorite movie, what your favorite TV show was, and your favorite video game. Just get start us off, right? And I'm pretty sure I went 0 for 3 in what I had guessed. But your movie, I would have never have guessed because everybody has their own favorite movie for a number of different reasons. But you're the only one that I know whose favorite movie is for sure The Secret Life of Walter Mitty. And this is why, because it made you decide to be a cinematographer, right?
Yeah. I think so.
Okay.
I do think so.
And I've seen it. I saw it on an airplane, and I was like, it's good.
Shame.
I know. And I was behind the times. Behind the times.
No, you should have you seen it not on an airplane monitor?
No.
Fuck, you need to watch it.
Invite me over, bro. We can watch it.
Yeah, we'll watch it. You need to watch
I have a Domino's gift card I got for Christmas. Let's watch it and let's order Domino's.
All right. I was like, I already have it. We don't need to buy it. But Domino's, I got you.
Okay.
But yeah, you gotta watch it. You really can't enjoy the full experience of really any movie on an airplane, but especially Walter Mitty.
Okay.
I mean, because Walter Mitty, the whole idea of Walter is, Walter, you've got to climb out of this box that you live in that's so confining, so constraining. Like the world outside this little square of your mind, like, is so big. Just like the plane's monitor.
Yeah.
Like that little, little display.
But I was on a plane in my defense to go somewhere.
That's fine.
So obviously I'm following his example. I'm just not enjoying the movies it should be.
Reality, like if your face is that close to a display, I mean, resolution is a factor, absolutely.
Yeah.
But if your face is that close to a display, you're getting the same field of view as if you were like on a couch to a big screen. There's going to be a lot of arguments about that. But for sure, you cannot get the same experience on like on a big screen.
Arguments about that of like the death of cinema and is it really dying and the cinematic experience. Well, I got to interject. One of my favorite TikTokers, he was reviewing this movie today, but the review was maybe like 30 seconds long, but his video was 2 minutes long because he ranted about how loud people in front of him were being, how they were on their phones, how they brought their blankets, how they were talking at full volume because they had paid to be there, so they thought they could treat it as if they were there. It was their living room. Anyway, that's beside the point. We'll talk about that in a later episode. Anyway, keep going.
So, anyways, right. So that was like the moment.
Okay.
Where I was like, cool, I'm going to go all in. I applied to film school. I applied to AFI and Chapman. I got into Chapman. It was like a 10% acceptance rate. So I was very fortunate. And I was like, all right, if I get in, I'm going to go. And I got in and I was like, okay, I got to go. So I went. It was a 3-year program. It was fantastic. The professors I had were phenomenal. Still great friends and mentors today. A couple of them are members of the American Society of Cinematographers, which is the most prestigious group in cinematography to be a part of. It's by invitation only, and it's a very limited number. So I just had great connections. Right, but there was still like a lot of doubt the first couple of years of if I could do this, and I had so much anxiety over it. And it was like before a shoot, it's like I wouldn't sleep for like 3 days, it felt like. And I just was so nervous. really kind of struggled to get to a point where I was like, oh man, I feel very confident in this. And then uh, COVID happened, but this was before it was officially COVID. No one knew what was happening. But it was my final year in my grad program, and one of my classmates, who was from Taiwan, he was shooting his thesis film in Taiwan, and he had a cinematographer, and she was fantastic cinematographer, Sherry, and she was slated to shoot it. They were planning it, and then the Taiwan government, as I understand it, was like, something's happening with
Some kind of weird illness.
some weird illness. Maybe it's associated with China. Chinese citizens cannot enter the country. So she had to enter the country to film, but now she couldn't. So he didn't have a cinematographer. So he calls me up, and this is in January of 2020. Um, and he's like, "Hey, I just lost my cinematographer. Can you be in Taiwan tomorrow?" And I was like, "Tomorrow?" And he's like, "Yeah, like we're prepping for this film. We just lost Sherry, and
This weird illness floating around that people are freaking out way too much about. Unbeknownst, it would become a global pandemic.
uh-huh, and I was like, well, I can't physically be there tomorrow, but like I could be there in a couple of days if that works." And he's like, "Yeah, yeah, yeah, yeah." I was like, "Let me make sure like I can do this, but my answer is yes, and I'll call you right back."
Just like what Walter Mitty would have wanted. Just Walter Mitty would have wanted.
So anyway, I just got my ticket, hopped on a plane, went to Taiwan, and was there for a couple weeks, like prepping, which was a fantastic experience. It was one of the best experiences of my life, as a filmmaker, but also just as a human being. And um, th- like basically, the director and the first camera assistant were the only ones that like were speaking fluent English. So there's a huge communication barrier because I have camera department, I have lighting department, grip department. Lighting and grip was kind of the same in Taiwan, where it's kind of two separate ones here. But then I have to communicate with them, and how do we do this, because they aren't understanding me, I'm not understanding them, and I had a light meter, and he had a light meter, and I was like, oh, okay, we understand this side of it, so we'll be able to communicate. Anyways, shot the film, had a fantastic experience. I absolutely loved the film, um, and and after that, I was like, oh, I can. That was like the thing that was like the confidence solidification of, okay, I am a cinematographer, and I can do this. And so then from there, like it's just been, that's all I've done, just a freelance full time cinematographer. Um, you know, so
That one of the things that I love, and I love this.
answer.
No, it's a good answer. One of the things that I love, I think, in life in general, especially when it comes to like Hollywood and media, is when someone is presented with their moment and they absolutely fucking kill it. One of my favorite things, you know, when you see someone that just like, not so much that they're born for a role, but they take that role and just absolutely kill it. Where you're like, wow, that was awesome. And it's someone's moment that comes along. I believe that all of us human beings have not just one, but multiple moments where it's our chance to seize that moment and solidify everything we wanted about ourselves, about our hopes and our dreams or whatever. And it sounds like what you're describing, that this Taiwan experience was that moment for you that proved not only to like yourself, but also the people in Taiwan, the world, film school, whatever, that you are exactly what you set out to be.
Yeah,
I
well,
love stories like that, bro.
well, man, like sometimes it doesn't feel like I'm there.
Well, it's interesting because like that's actually my next question is there ever a time where you have been like, what have I done? I regret this. This is not as fun as I thought it was. Have you ever, you don't have to like name names or anything, but have you ever been on like shoots of like films or TV shows or corporate commercials, whatever you've done, and you've just been like, I can't believe that I have to film this and try to see if I can make something good out of it. Has that ever happened, or is that just is?
Yes, yes. It's hard to really describe, but like absolutely, that's happened. Um, you know, uh, I mean, there's a few experiences for sure that tainted me a bunch. Um, but yeah, I mean, along the way, there's been like a lot of like, I guess what's interesting is when I was at film school for 3 years, like everyone wanted to be there because it was their pride and passion, and they loved it, right? And either they were fortunate and had a scholarship, or their parents covered the bill, or they got a shitload of debt, right? I was in the shitload of debt category.
Damn, I was hoping it was category one.
And when you graduate, it's like, okay, now we have to make money. And if we don't make money in this society, if you don't make money, you, uh, I don't know if suffer is the right word to say, but um, you are less equipped to survive uh, and thrive.
I think like it just seems like now like everything that you do is like every human interaction you have is monetized.
Monetize.
Even if like your friend, like remember my friend, it's like some of these coaching groups. No offense, if anyone's in a coaching group, but it's like, well, I'll be your friend for $50 a month. I'm just like, are you kidding, bro?
Yeah, like it. It's incredibly unhealthy, which has been a huge factor in some of these experiences of like, am I doing this just to cover my costs? And now I hate this. I like the thing that brought me passion and joy now is dictated by a dollar bill, and I'm constantly being asked to be better, be faster, and do it for less budget and do it in less time.
To do it worse
Um,
or keep it the same.
no, keep it the same or better, but now you have less.
Okay.
Uh, and and there's not a real care for what it is, but it's going to sell. So we just have to get it out in front of people and whatever. Um, which I just hate. I fucking hate that shit. Like so much because it's something that is like so personal to me, and I spend so much time and energy, and I've spent like so much money. I mean, so much stress and agony and perseverance and triumph to get to where I'm at for someone just to go, well, I don't really fucking care. I'm just trying to make some money here. So just show up, do this thing. Like you can just shoot it with your phone, right? And you can do it for like cheap and free, right? Um, cool. And it's like, no, motherfucker.
You almost like described the downfall of Marvel right there. Like I don't know if it's like if you were thinking about this or this was like sublime, like like a hidden message, or if you just totally disagree with me. But like I think that's a lot of issue that people have now with like those Marvel movies. And I will still defend Marvel. I still think most Marvel is great, but like the last couple of years, like things like Captain Marvel 2 or the She-Hulk. Did you see any of those?
No.
Just both of them were just trash. Like I'll give you an example. I went and saw Captain Marvel 2 at a 7:30 a.m. showing, and I watched it, left, went to work, and around 2 p.m. I was so tired, and I was like, why am I so tired? Because I got up at 5 or 6 to go see a movie, but I completely had forgot. I saw it the same day. It had that little of an impact on me versus like 10 years ago. Like you think 10 years ago in 2014, we're recording this the last days of 2024. Guardians of the Galaxy 1 came out and Captain America the Winter Soldier. two amazing films with amazing messages. Guardians of the Galaxy 1, how a bunch of misfits can come together for the greater good. And we'll talk about, Guardians. I know that movie had a big impact on you. That's when I first met you. We were talking about that. What a great message. What a great message of these. And it's a Marvel movie. It's got the Marvel sticker on it, so you know it's going to sell. Captain America, the Winter Soldier, where Captain America is loyal, he's true, and he is despised for it in that movie. To where everything that he stood up for has turned against him, against his morals. And what does a righteous person do when what you base your identity on now is actively against you? Captain America, and he's being hunted by America. Those are two amazing messages with the Marvel sticker on it. Made well, great directors, and made a bunch of money because they were good films. Now, with these shows that come out now, like She-Hulk or Captain Marvel 2 or whatever, it kind of feels that same way, where it's like, it's going to sell because we got the Marvel sticker on it. We can put it absolute garbage on the TV, but because it's got the Marvel sticker on it, we will make money. So do it for less, do it lesser quality, just get it done. Do you agree with that, or do you see that like seeping down like into what you're doing as well? Like,
oh, absolutely, for sure, absolutely.
Because you're the expert. I'm just assuming here, based on what I've seen over the last couple of years, of if that's trickling down to, I mean, even like the local stuff that you're doing here in Salt Lake, of that same kind of sentiment where it's like, just get it done. Like, we're just going to sell. We're not looking to make anything high quality here. We're just looking to get something out to make content.
Absolutely. I mean, I'll give you an example. And I'm not trying to throw shade on
Give them shade
to folks that were doing this. Very ambitious of them, and that's great. And I actually really like the individuals. I kind of disagree with the approach behind it, but to illustrate. Like a setup, when you're filming something, like a setup is anytime like the camera moves. So if you move the camera, it's a setup. And so, well, shit. Now I'm like, oh, I'm overthinking it. And I'm like, oh wait, did I say the right thing? And everyone's like, you're not a real cinematographer because you can't even describe a setup. Fuck it. Anyways, basically, if you set lights up and then you shoot it, you take a shot and you move the camera, it becomes a new setup. So if you start with scene one, right? Scene one on the slate, we're shooting scene one, and it's a wide. Then we move over to close up. That's one alpha, and then we move to the other close. That's one bravo. So that's three setups because you're moving the camera. But you can get multiple shots in the same setup. So you could stay on that. You could shoot the wide, swap a lens, and shoot a close up in that same thing. So you're not really changing the setup. To a degree, you are. Anyways, for all of you guys that want to critique me on my cinematography,
do in the comments so we get the what's it called, the engagement.
Yeah, you know what, and it'll be good. It'll be good for me to get corrected, and my professors, especially, I can hear one of them, Bill, going, "Come on, Sam.
So who did this?
We talked about this. Like, how do you not know this? Sorry, Bill. Truly, I will do better." Anyways, point being, so I remember at film school, it was like, cool, if you could get like 15 to 25 setups in a day, great. Like, and, upwards to 35, like 35, 40 setups in a day. I mean, that's a lot. That's a lot. And there might be more shots and setups, but still, like, that's quite a bit. Well, so let's just say we'll just go to 20 setups, and that could mean maybe 30 shots within those 20 setups. And that's like a 12-hour day, right? And that's still like you're moving pretty quick. Well, how many shots did we need to get basically it was like, hey, we're going to start at 7 and you'll be done start at 8 and you'll be done by 5. So that's like, what, an 8-hour day, 9-hour day, whatever that is. 114. We're going to 114. We need to get 114 shots because we need 40 variations of this thing to test to which one's going to sell more. And it's like 114 in a single day. Like, why? 40 variations to test on which is going to sell better? Why? Why not three? Why not five? I mean, I don't even agree with 10, but why not 10 over 40? Like, it just doesn't make any sense. And the whole thought behind it is like, well, which one's going to sell more? And if that one sells more, then do we need to refilm those because they were shit quality because they were just like a check on the box? Anyways, like we worked 45 minutes over our lunch break and then it was 2.5 hours of overtime. So that turned into a 15-hour day for the sake of like, how much can we pump out just so we can make as much as we can instead of actually going, you know what, let's be intentional. Let's decide and commit to an idea. Let's create a narrative point of view or a narrative commercial trajectory, and then let's commit to that, do it. And if it's three things, five things, okay, we're gonna do five different things, right? Um, but but then it just becomes machine work. There's no thought, there's no care. It all it is dollar bills. And for me, that's so draining. And like I've worked a lot of those jobs, and I will still continue to work those jobs because those jobs pay the bills, right? Um, but I also shoot a lot of stuff, and I do a lot of stuff narratively. Some of it paid, but most of it I do for free because I need that fulfillment inside of creating and being intentional and storytelling. Um, and so I shoot a lot of things for free. I do a lot of short films just to stay sharp in narrative filmmaking. That's like my bread and butter. Uh, Long term, I want to just continue shooting feature films. I shot my first feature film in 2023.
What was it? Let's give it a shout out.
It's called Mythica Stormbound. It's like the sixth movie in this sci-fi fantasy.
We'll add a link to it.
Yeah, we'll add a link to it. Anyways, it was my first feature film, and I think I knocked it out of the fucking park.
Yeah.
That goes also accredited to like every department head on that movie was amazing. The director was fantastic. One of my best buds, Jake Stormone, and then like the production designer Meg. Anyways, like just so many of those heads of departments were stellar and made that film what it was. And I don't know, it looks like a $5 to $10 million film, and uh, listed on IMDb, it's like, or at least in the Utah tax film credit, whatever. I think it was listed as like a $800,000 budget. There's no way on God's earth it had $800,000. We maybe had 250, maybe. If there was $800,000, only about 200 to 250 actually went to the movie. Where the other went, we wonder. We don't know.
It's a Mythica. Who knows?
It's a myth.
Anything can happen.
Anyways, that's a whole other thing we don't need to get into. But point being, that's like the thing that brings me joy, and that's why I did that movie. It was like, I think I got paid 10 grand for that movie, for everything. It was prep, it was shooting, 2 weeks shooting, everything I contributed in post with color grading and whatever. It was like 10 grand just flat. And I said yes to it because I wanted a feature film under my belt, and I wanted one that I knew was going to get distribution and actually live on somewhere, because they have made them in the past, right? And that's a whole other thing that we could maybe get into later about all that. But I ended up spending about 8 grand of my own money to get the things that I needed and wanted to make that film shine. and to actually accomplish the task at hand that we were shooting. We were shooting sometimes like 11 pretty much almost every day, like 11 pages a day. And essentially, one page on a script translates to 1 minute of screen time. And that varies depending on what is actually happening in the scene. Like one page could could end up being like 5 minutes. But kind of a traditional 1-to-1 ratio, 1 minute on 1 minute on screen is 1 minute on page. And we had a lot. So we were doing, and it had stunts, it had VFX, which just adds complexities to it. So to do all that and shoot it in 14 days, like it was insane, absolutely insane. And then to get the product that we got out of it, like I'm just so thrilled. But anyways, all that point being, like, in a way that could have sucked my soul because it was like, we don't want to spend any money on this, and we want it to be good, and we don't really care about anything other than how much money we're going to make on this movie on the back. So I was like, well, I'm not going to approach it like that. Like I cannot, like I won't make it.
Don't even tell me that at this point.
Yeah. So, so anyways, like I'm going, all right, this is what I love, and this is what I want it to be. So I'm going to do this to make it happen. Spend $8,000 of my own money. It's like, I shouldn't have to do that.
Yeah, no way.
Right. And it's like, is that sustainable for a career? Hell no. There's no way that you just can't do that. Right. But those are the things that you face, especially as a younger cinematographer trying to work your way into like just a larger scale production model, which is what I want to do. And you can't shoot feature films unless you have shot a feature film. Like if you apply for a feature film, have you shot one? Can you show me your features? Like, well, no, because no one's giving me. Well, you can't shoot a feature unless you've shot a feature. It's like, well,
I'm waiting to get a feature.
That's what I'm trying to do, right? So that's why I was like, cool, I will spend $8,000 of my own money so I can have a feature on my belt when someone goes, all right, well, have you shot a feature before? It's like, sure have. It's on Amazon Prime. Boom, here it is. And it looks great. I think it's actually a pretty decent story. All things considered, that the audience will never know. It's like, it's a miracle that it exists, and there's no way that it has no business being in the realm of how good it is with everything that transpired away.
So I guess, and this we can one of my last questions for you. You talk about your film journey. You talk about Mythica, your feature film. Walter Mitty, what a part that Walter played in it. I remember, and I don't remember exactly what we were seeing. It wasn't Top Gun, because we saw Top Gun in Sandy. We were going to a theater. So just so you guys get so me and Sam, we live close, but we don't live that close. And so when we go see movies, sometimes he comes my way and sometimes I go his way. We usually go to a Megaplex theater. So if Megaplex, if you're listening, please sponsor this podcast.
I'll hold my tongue.
But we always go. We usually go to a Megaplex theater, and we were at the one in by your spot, the Geneva. And I remember you telling me, I don't remember what we were seeing, but you said, I am working on this project. It's called Sweet Molly, and we won't get a lot into this because we're lucky enough to live close to to the director, right?
Yep.
He lives close.
Yep.
And so we really want to bring him on because I really want to spend, probably just, probably like a 2 hour or something, like just talking with him and how this came to be. And it's coming to my mind, my daughter just told Sam that she watched it and she doesn't speak English, and that she was impacted by the story. And I remember that you tell me about this. I'm like, I'm really excited about this project. I'm working on it. It's this passion project of mine. And I think one of the moments that I've been, as your buddy, I've been proud of you for a long time. I've seen like your ups and your downs. And it was at what was that film festival called we went to this year? The one with the octopus for the logo?
A Film Quest.
Film Quest. So with Film Quest,
Film Quest is fucking awesome.
okay, Film Quest, please sponsor us. Film Quest, we were at Film Quest, and I've been wanting to see Sweet Molly forever because I've heard about it for 2 years. And I finally got a chance. Halloween night, I almost missed it. I don't know if you remember this. I almost missed it because they told me it was happening in the 8 o'clock block. And so I was getting ready to bounce. I was getting ready to go and do something else for 3 hours. And you were like, hey, I think it's showing like at 7. And I confirmed it was showing at 7. The lady didn't know what she was talking about. So we watch Sweet Molly, and it's a half-hour short film, right?
Yeah.
And something happens in it, which I won't talk about now because obviously we don't want to give away spoilers until the director's here. And the reaction in the crowd was pretty awesome. And just to see your, like, I turned around, just looked at your face, and you were just tickled. I guess that's the right word to describe just like what you had on your face is pride, obviously, for the thing that you've created, that you've shot, that you contributed your time to help create. And then just, you knew what was coming, but we didn't. And the reaction I was hoping is kind of what you were hoping would happen after shooting something like that. And it was a culmination of everything I've ever known about you and your passions and how you care so much about your craft, you care so much about people, and it all collided for me, like in this moment, just for feeling proud. And so I want to know, just first off, and you can go into as much detail as you'd like. Obviously, this is your podcast, of what that moment was like for you in your hometown, having a reaction like that for a film that you helped create, and just this project that I've heard so much about for the last 2 years. What was it like seeing it done? What was it like filming it? And just tell me about Sweet Molly. And we'll add a link to Sweet Molly as well.
Yes, and it might. Well, the link will be later because it's still in festival. So okay.
Do we have like a link for like a website to it, or like a trailer?
There's a trailer. Yeah.
Okay, we'll link the trailer.
Figure something out for the trailer. Well, really quick, that reminded me, and I'll just be very quick on this, about like moments that like you knew, right?
Yeah.
So I'm gonna go back really quick.
To Film Quest?
No. This is much before. But in a way, it not in a way, it absolutely corresponds to this, what happened in this moment at Film Quest. My undergrad, there was a 48-hour film festival, and I'd never done it, and I wasn't really doing a ton of narrative stuff at that time. I was still just kind of like getting my chops wet in that area. Anyways, 48-hour film fest. Was working on it with another buddy at the time, and we shot it, in the 40. Anyways, for you who don't know what a 48-hour film festival is, basically you meet up.
Marathon, right?
Yeah, you meet up. Someone goes, here's the idea you have to use. You have to include this. You have to include this, and you have to include this. It has to be this. It can't be longer than this, and it has to be turned in 48 hours. So go. So then you have to write an idea, plan out how you're going to shoot it, get actors, do all of that, shoot it, then edit it, do all the post-production, 48 hours, turn it in, and then you watch it. Sometimes it's at a later date. Sometimes it's like literally at the end of 48 hours. So anyways, we did this 48-hour film festival, and we made this thing, and we went to the auditorium that was not like all the way full, but there was probably, I felt like a couple hundred people in this auditorium. And they played all the things, and then they were giving these awards. And our little 48-hour film was this little Christmas story about this little girl trying to give cookies to Santa Claus. And it got voted best story from the audience. And there was this feeling that I saw wash over the crowd when ours played, and there was like teary eyes. There was like a real heartfelt emotion that happened, and I'm sitting here watching this, and I went, wow, like
I helped cause this.
The story, like this idea, this story that we just told, had a profound impact on these people. And then standing up there accepting this award for best story, like the award, like it just went over my head. It was standing in front of them, seeing like this visceral reaction that they had that was real on this stupid little story that we did. But it wasn't stupid, obviously, because it had such a positive impact. But then it was like, that's what I want to do. I want to create stories that cause people to feel something. So that was like
Yeah.
a moment. All right, now Sweet Molly. Years later, Sweet Molly is a passion project that I got brought onto from director J.C. McNaughton.
Do you think he'll come on?
I think so.
Okay.
I hope so.
Do you think we'll get 2 hours out of him? 'Cause I have questions. And compliments, obviously, but I have questions too.
Yeah, 2 hours might be a bit.
I know he's got a family, so.
Yeah, but JC, like,
But it's free marketing.
it's free. It is free marketing.
Free marketing.
It's free marketing. Yeah, I mean, I don't think JC's very humble. He doesn't love. He doesn't really love like talking about himself and the work that he does, and he gets very excited about the stories he wants to tell. But but I think he's pretty humble in that. It's like, why are you talking to me about this?
Well, he directed it.
Type thing. I know, and I could be wrong, JC. I could be wrong. So, anyways,
Hey, JC.
JC's fantastic. He's one of my favorite people, and he's had such an interesting life, and which is why I think he's such a good storyteller. So, anyways, he wrote the story called Sweet Molly, and you can watch the trailer. But there's a moment that happens, right, that you're talking about, where when it happened in the film, the audience just erupted, and it was like cheers, gasps, clapping,
Everything.
right? And that happened when we screened it at the Simi Valley Film Festival a few months prior. The exact same thing happened, and then it happened again. And what was fun about the first time was we genuinely did not expect the reactions that we were going to get. In fact, when we were filming that, so many things were going wrong. We were like, shit. The sun has come up. We can't shoot anymore. The things that we were shooting weren't working. The things that I can't talk too much about it. Things were not working properly. And the sun was coming up, and it was our final day of shooting. People were hopping on a plane and flying away, and it was like, oh fuck. This was our one time to get this, and it was the most difficult thing. And we tried to plan as best as we can. It was low budget, very, very low budget. People were working for free, like, which I just hate doing. I was paying gas and helping people, and anyways, just because I really cared about it, right? And we were trying to be as fair as possible with it, but we also were very upfront. This is a passion project. There's not a lot of money. Blah, blah, blah. Besides the point. So we didn't think we really got it. We didn't think we captured the moment. It certainly wasn't to the grandeur of what we had planned for. And so we're like, is this even going to work? This is so pivotal to the film. Is this going to work? And JC went to work in the editing room, got a cut in, started adding all of the elements, right? And then we got to a point where, like, okay, we think this works. We think this is going to work. It feels pretty good to us. It doesn't feel like what it could have been because we knew where we wanted to go with it. But it's at a place where it will work to finish the story, at least to have a complete story. So when we watched the Simi Film Valley Festival, and there was this eruption in Simi Valley, same thing: cheers, applause, gasps.
You were kind of caught off guard.
Caught off guard, and it was like, wow, it actually worked, right? It actually worked. And it worked way beyond like anything that we anticipated. And how fulfilling that was. And then you start going, well, is that a fluke? Was that a one time thing? Is that going to happen again? Is everyone going to feel the same thing? Did I make it bigger than it actually was? Uh, and then we played the film quiz, and it happened again, and it was just like, oh no, that was real, and it was this real reaction that that universally brought everyone together in that moment, and
Oh yeah.
there was a tension and a relief. Uh,
Oh, it's like I wish I could say more, but there's these you just can't. You just
you
can't.
can't.
You can't. When we have JC on, if he wants, you don't have to come on. We'll talk about it with Anime too if he wants. But we have to do two sections where it's like the first little bit non-spoiler, but the second, well, we gotta get into spoilers because there's a lot to say about not just that moment, but the moments in this film of just that brought people together, that broke people's hearts, that made people just more aware. I mean, it's just so well done, and we can't probably discuss it without talking spoilers. We have to be very clear of like, for those of you that have not seen Sweet Molly yet, please check out and come back later. 3, 2, 1, go. If you're still here, you're here at your own risk because it's just, I mean, even now, like we're just giving you a preview and I want to say something. I want to make a joke. I want to make a joke about something you just said about this movie, but you can't because even the joke that I'll make it has to do with a spoiler. So I can't even do it.
Well, and it would, and maybe. Well, before I get to there, like that's why I started this. That's why it was like that moment of Walter Mitty going, "Oh, like I want to jump in and I want to feel something." And cinematography and filmmaking is like what makes me feel something. And then having that 40-hour film festival experience where I'm like, "Oh my gosh, we created something that these people felt something." It's like that's what I want to do is I want to make I want to I want to I want to make people feel something, right? And then to do it in a way that we did with Sweet Molly, I mean, it was just so fulfilling, and not for our own sake, but for the fact of like what the story was about, who the story was for, and it was giving a voice to them and for an audience to be supportive of what their voice would be if they had the courage to speak. Like how powerful if they knew that. How powerful like their words would be, their voice would be like if they just got to that point, like these survivors, like what could stop them from doing and becoming and leaving behind the things they want to leave behind. So like that shit is what makes me wake up in the morning.
That's cool.
And anyways, that's what I want to do with my life.
So, my last question. Last question for the pod is what is, and like for you guys listening, like obviously Sam's a cinematographer. He has his own business. We're gonna link to his LLC, which is called
Well, so it's just my website. So
samsargent.com.
samsargent.film.
Samsargent.film. We'll add that in so people can find what he's doing. People can spread the word around. And so I'll add a link to that because my last question is what's next besides the Locked Off Logic podcast, which is going to be kick ass. What is next for Sam Sargeant in his journey with film?
See, that's a great question. I'm still trying to figure that out. That's like the life of a freelance independent filmmaking artist is like, what's next? And how do you get it? And who's going to pay for it? Now, I say that, going, which kind of sounds like I don't know what's next. And I don't. However, I personally want to do a feature film of Sweet Molly. So do a full-length version and flesh that story out a little bit more. Which we could do pretty quickly.
There's a lot of questions at the end of Sweet Molly. It ends, and I mean,
yeah,
you can't say anything more, else you spoil it. But you're just like, I want to know more about Molly. I
Yeah,
want to know. I want to know.
yeah. Well, and like the cool thing about what I really like about Sweet Molly is like the events that happen in the film is within a 24 hour, probably even 12-hour period of time. So it's not like this. You're following a character over like days or months or years. It's like no, this here's an individual. Here's what's happening in their life. Here's what just happened, and here's how their reaction is, and what 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 do they do from there. So it's very isolated. Um, so, anyways, there's a lot to flesh out there. So, Sweet Molly for me, and I'm sure JC would like to do a feature film version of it as well. Um, we would love to do that, but we need funding for it because it will be independently made, unless there was a studio that got brought on or whatever. I actually think A24 would fucking love this film. So anyone from A24 out there,
Please check it out. Please watch the trailer.
yeah, send me a message. JC and I will send you a private link, and we'd love to chat. And the other thing is, and I can't really talk about too much of it because it explores some of what happens in Sweet Molly, but it's a completely different universe, totally unrelated to Sweet Molly. But there's a lot of things that we tried in Sweet Molly to as a proof of concept for could we do this, and would it work in this story? And there's a full length feature script that's already done. There's a pitch deck that's all done that JC has, and we just need someone to go. Sweet, here's X amount of dollars, and like, I mean, we would love to make it for 1 to 2 million, but if we had to make it between 250 to 750, we could. But I really think like it would shine at $750,000 or more. So we just need to make money. We need to make that money to make that happen. So in the meantime, like that's ready to go. As soon as someone goes, we love this, we want to back this, and they drop a check, we're off to the races. Like it's already ready to go. In the meantime, there's another script that JC's doing, which is just another short narrative called Miseria, and we're both super excited about that. We're going to shoot that this upcoming year, and kind of some fun things to play in with that. But yeah, I mean, I'm just besides like just like the regular kind of commercial work that I get, and like a lot of other things that I just don't ever advertise, will never be on my website, that are just like pay the bills type thing. Um, Besides those things, which which are good, because they allow me to breathe, so that I can focus more on the narrative things. Like what's next for me is like this next year, I really hope to get like an agent as a cinematographer to represent me and in the narrative world, so I can get more narrative based projects, more feature film things. Episodic television would be great as well, but like feature film, I think is kind of where I feel at home. At least that's what I felt with Mythica, um, and just short narratives. I mean, Sweet Molly, same thing. So anyways, like what's next? Those things I hope, um, and yeah, just trying to figure out better ways also to help to live and cope in a healthier lifestyle as a freelancer. Like, I was just doing like a year in review type thing for this year, and I think it amounted out to like I had 44 shooting days this last year. Um, as a cinematographer, and then I had like 8 days or something camera operating, and then I had like 12 days like in post production color grading stuff. So really like 71, something like 71 or 72 like Labor Days. And it's like, well, 365 minus 71, that's a lot of days where I'm looking for work, right? Um, Fortunately, like when I do work, it can be pretty fruitful. Sometimes not, but you have to figure out a way to manage that because like when it's feast, you feast, and
You
when it's
feast.
famine,
You starve it.
man, like especially the last couple of years with the strikes and pandemic, like it's the weirdest it's ever been in the film industry. I feel like so. Anyways, it's just curious. Yeah, what's next? Like, I hope a lot more work. Yeah, uh, but also trying to find ways to continue to just enjoy being in the moment and being present. And when I'm not working, like being okay with not working and still finding time for things that I enjoy. Or sharpening my skills. Like, there's a whole other world of cinematography that's coming out with a tool called Unreal Engine, which is essentially a game engine that started out as that now has created a whole new world for creating like these incredible virtual worlds that are seamless on camera. Like Mandalorian, for example, is an example of that, and so many others. So, anyways, I'm trying to explore what can I figure out in Unreal Engine to help me be a better cinematographer. Um, but I really hope it's just out shooting. Like that's what makes me really, really tick and happy is out in the trenches, filming. Um, that's what's pretty fulfilling.
Well, we'll add the link to your website, samsargent.film. In the website, obviously, as the podcast grows, I'm sure more people will find you that way. And in the meantime, I'm really excited to have you on the pod. I'm excited to do this project with you and to talk about, just the conversation today. It's just filled with so much passion, profession, and art, and which is awesome. It's different the way I see it. Obviously, I see the art part. The passion I really enjoy going and consuming and trying to learn something from and being someone who reacts to that type of stuff. So I'm thinking of like the episodes we have coming up where, in the next episode, our roles will be reversed where you'll be interviewing me, although my story's way less interesting than yours.
Whatever.
We'll be talking, the first episode, we're actually going to get into the trenches of this. There's two things that we're going to talk about to finish out January is Arcane on Netflix. It's kind of the show that inspired us to, or at least not inspired, but sparked the conversation that led to this podcast. And we just spent an hour talking about this shit over dinner. So there's so much more to talk about. Every year on either the new year or either the first or the second, I always rewatch my favorite movie, Logan, from the X-Men franchise, which I don't think is your favorite, obviously, but I know it's up there.
Like in terms of favorite
films of all time.
It's up there.
Okay.
Not my favorite film of all time,
but it's up there.
But it's up there. It's probably my favorite superhero movie film.
Oh, for sure.
And I would argue that it's not a superhero film.
Yeah, and we'll talk about this in the podcast. But that's probably the first movie that I actually had like an emotional reaction that I couldn't control, and I physically couldn't leave the theater. And I watched it. We didn't even go see this together. I saw this by myself, and I'll never forget the experience. I was in South Jordan, Utah, and I was in the theater watching it, and I was sitting next to 5 guys who I didn't know, and none of them said a word throughout the whole movie. None of us. And we just all sat there and had kind of the same reaction to where devastation, just sad, we were inspired. It was just, it's so good. Anyway, so we'll talk about Logan. And Sam and I, we do this podcast and we still go to movies. And so we'll do movie reviews here. We'll come home from a showing and we can talk about what we just saw. We can recommend if y'all should see it or skip it or stream it. You probably see them all in the movie theater, right? Like,
I like to go to movie theaters as much as I can. Yeah.
Okay.
Um, I also hate I hate streaming if I can watch it via Blu-ray.
Oh, okay.
But
Fair enough. For me, like, see, this is someone that is not a film student. I have basically three categories for me. It's like see it on a big screen, stream it, or skip it. Those are my three categories.
okay.
So happy to give the recommendation. Like Gladiator, that's the last film that I saw this year. Definitely watch the thing on the big screen. Definitely watch the thing on the big screen. I think of all the movies I saw this year, like Society of the Snow, I wish that thing was on the big screen because that was amazing. They streamed it, but it should have been on the big screen.
Yeah.
And then, I've seen some movies where, Monkey Man. I'd say skip it. Don't stream it. Just skip it. I know it got good reviews on Rotten Tomatoes. I didn't like it. Was bored. Was confused. Skip it. So we'll talk about that. There's Sam and I are pretty involved in a lot of different things as far as media, TV shows. He's a big Game of Thrones fans. We'll talk about the Game of Thrones. The Last of Us comes out part 2, so we're gonna spend a lot of time talking about The Last of Us, which really impacts us both, personally, professionally, and just a hell of a TV show and a hell of a video game. And so we'll be we'll be filled with content this year. So please follow along with us. You can help us out. Subscribe on YouTube. Leave us your thoughts in the comments of things that we should talk about, things that we should review, the ways we can improve. Subscribe to us on YouTube, not YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you can find your podcast. And we're really excited to share this journey of inspiring media and inspiring people together. This is one thing that I'm really excited also about the podcast is that there's so much inspiration we found like outside of the theater as well. Like there's a guy who'd agreed to come on the podcast. Actually, lives pretty close to you. He's a lawyer here in Salt Lake City who his nonprofit is called the Utah Homicide Survivors Nonprofit, and he just works to prosecute murders here in Salt Lake City. Like this dude. I mean, he's like 5'9", little guy, and just an absolute beast of a human being. So if you're listening, Brandon, he'll be on. So I need to give an introduction. But like, his story, like that should be a movie, bro. Like his story should be a movie, and like some of the people that we'll bring on and have them, want to hear what inspires them. Like, where does someone that prosecutes killers for a living find his inspiration? Because he's also a big Last of Us fan too. He got a PS5 for Christmas. Anyway, beside the point. But no, I thank Sam for his interview. And subscribe to us wherever you get your podcast. Subscribe to us on YouTube. Tell your friends. And Sam, I guess any parting words for those of us that are listening to the Locked Off Logic podcast? L cubed, as it were.
Yeah, I'm sure we're gonna get asked a bunch of questions about where did Locked Off Logic come from. We'll answer that later. No, just I guess thanks for coming and listening. I'm very grateful to have the listeners here. I do have to admit, like, I'm doing this for me, and I really wanted to do this, and I hope because of how much I've wanted to do it for me, and like in my own way, and not for someone else, that it will actually resonate with people out there listening better. And I think it would be, I don't know, I think it'd be gimmicky if I was doing it for them solely. Like, cool, listen, pay your money.
We're doing it for you. It's like you're seeing the same stuff that we are.
Yeah, it's like, no, I actually am really excited about this, and I'm excited to just continue the conversations I have with Tyler, and now I guess more scheduled regularly, and something that we can just like riff off of and explore, the different facets of the things that we want to talk about, like from my perspective to your perspective, and whatever comes. Like I'm just excited to kind of explore like what this becomes, and I don't know. I'm a little surprised actually at how natural this felt, as opposed to like, oh, we're gonna record this and people are gonna be watching, and like, you know, what's
Them.
them,
Them.
you. But it's just kind of been like just you and I having another conversation, which has been a lot of fun.
I'm excited for it too. This is a bad thought before we go into the end of the podcast, but I'm excited to like go back in time too. Cause like I just rewatched, I told you about this, but they didn't know about this. The Lord of the Rings series. Man, those are good movies. Like 20 years later, those things still hold up. And just like as you're older, like just the vibes that some of those characters give off are you appreciate them so much more as adults of things you can learn from. The Dark Knight series, like there's a conversation in the Dark Knight series and Batman Begins. You know, at 15 when that movie came out, I was 15. And I was like, man, this is cool. Batman's a ninja. This is cool. But there's a monologue between Ra's al Ghul and Bruce Wayne when Bruce Wayne's getting his ass kicked in the mountains, where Ra's al Ghul gives such a perfect description of what loss feels like, where he's just like, I wasn't always here in the mountains. I had a wife, a great love. She's taken from me. I just wish that the pain would go away. It's almost easier if they were never born because then I would be free of this pain. And Bruce Wayne is listening on every word that he says. And it's just awesome. And then like, throughout that movie and all this has to go like Christopher Nolan, who's just an amazing director. Although, anyway, it's a different story. We're talking about Interstellar at a different time. But
You don't like Interstellar.
I do not like Interstellar. So we're starting off with controversy right off the bat. I know Interstellar. Shame. I'll tell you why. Well, do you want to do this now, or do you want to do this at a different podcast?
Well, I don't.
Well, we got to do a whole show dedicated to Christopher Nolan and Interstellar. But I will tell you that I checked out when he lost 20 years. That's when I checked out. I know it's a good movie. I know it's great. Matthew McConaughey is great, and Mackenzie Faye, I think is how you pronounce her last name. She was great, but emotionally, isn't that her name? The actress that plays his daughter.
No.
Who's his daughter?
Oh, wait, like younger, like
Yes,
the
younger
version.
Yes,
Oh,
version.
gotcha.
Yes, I think it's Mackenzie Faye because I think she was in Twilight too.
Okay.
That's where I first saw her.
Okay. I thought you were talking about
No.
eh, eh, eh,
No, I don't know what I was talking about her. No, when he lost 20 years, when Mackenzie, I'm not sure I'm pronouncing her last name correctly. When Mackenzie transformed into that actress based on the time jump, I checked out.
think of her name right now.
We'll think about it. But I checked out.
This game.
You know, Christopher Nolan, I've generally enjoyed his film, but there are some that I enjoyed. Like Interception,
Inception.
Interception. Inception, I was not a fan.
You didn't like Inception?
No.
Holy shit.
That's like 40 minutes too long, too. No, wasn't a fan. No! Inception I did like. I'm thinking of a different one. What's the pandemic one? With Rob Pattinson in the airplane. Tenet. I hated Tenet. Inception was great.
I really liked Tenet.
No, I didn't. I liked, what's that one with Tom Hardy in World War II? Dunkirk. I really enjoyed that one. Dunkirk, I was impacted by because they never said the word Hitler, but the actions of one man and his political party caused all that destruction and death. His presence was overtly felt without ever having to say his name. It was awesome.
I'll have to rewatch Dunkirk. I'll have to rewatch it because that, out of memory, is my least memorable film from Nolan. Was Dunkirk, and I'm actually very curious about that, of why that is.
Yeah, rewatch it.
I'll have to rewatch it. But when's the last time you saw Inception?
Oh, it's been 15 years.
15 years? Yeah, bro. You should have gone and saw the re-release in theaters.
Why didn't I get the invite?
Dude, you need to invite yourself to that.
I know, but I have this friend here who...
Dude, well, I hadn't seen it in 10 years. 10 years, because it was the 10-year release, not 15. But
okay, fair enough.
But yeah, 10 years. And I mean, it's interesting. My reaction, even to it 10 years later, was so much more emotional. I mean, the opening of the movie when he just like gets out of bed and he's looking out the window and the music starts to play. It's like all of a sudden I'm getting hit from all sorts of angles of like emotion, and I'm going, what the fuck is happening to me right now? And and I was basically holding back like ugly crying in that movie at the theater.
Hey.
Uh, and I don't. It's like I've been trying to think of why that is, and it's just like it's because I mean the whole film, right? It explores this idea of time and love and expansion of relationship and how far does that love transcend? Uh, and like the more time you have experiencing those things, the more profound it is. So now 10 years later, watching this same story, like feeling now even deeper or understanding things that I did not understand before in terms of emotional depth, where I've just been like, I mean, I'm not a father, but I felt like I understood 10 years later much more closely to what a father would feel like
Huh.
in that situation regarding his family and his kids and being separated from them and then like in this whole time warp, right, of like 27 years is now gone and he's now watching all of these videos of his kids grow up, like, and he missed that. and and I'm sure so much guilt and shame to his choice of doing that.
Are you talking about Interstellar or Inception?
Interstellar.
Okay.
Did I say Inception?
I think you said Inception because
Interstellar.
I'm pretty sure Inception came out at least 15 years ago. Interstellar did not.
Correct.
Because I saw it in college. I'm pretty sure I probably saw it with
Inception
you.
came out in 2010, I believe.
Okay. Yeah, I think you're right.
So 15 years.
Yeah, I was living in the Dominican Republic.
And then
I missed it.
Interstellar.
Okay.
Yes. So anyways, I'm talking about Interstellar.
Okay. Now it makes sense what you're saying. 10 years. This is the one you went to and you didn't. Well, I don't know if I would have gone anyway. I might have gone.
I don't know. You didn't like Interstellar.
Yeah, I've only seen it once. In the last half of it, I was totally checked out, at least emotionally.
So, anyways, and I will say, every seat was filled. And when I was looking for a seat, I could only find one single. There was no like multiple seats. And then by the time the movie started, and I checked all the showings, every seat was filled. And that's why they extended the runtime because it was just selling out. There was literally no empty seats. And so I was in this room, and a lot. It was interesting because I saw a lot of people my age, so 32, 33, 30, 32. I saw a lot of people my age sitting and watching that, and just a somberness that you don't really see in my generation very often, at least in public. And there was this somberness that just washed over everyone watching that film. And I mean, I had to just sit and just compose myself in the credits, just like not let myself like break down. I don't know. I don't know why I'm so affected by films. Because I'm not, I don't know.
Well, I think that's what I think everybody is like. I think that's why I think it's so important to preserve that art and to make good art. Because even like over Christmas, my mom made us all watch as a family this film that I'm pretty sure was filmed here in Utah. It's called The Greatest Christmas Pageant Ever. Have you heard about this film? It's produced by a group here in Utah called Fletchet or Chet Fletch. It's on Amazon Prime. And you see it, you kind of know it's filmed in Utah. It has some like local Utah actors and my mom, this is the only movie that she's watched in probably 5 years, and she's watched it, I don't know, 7 times since it came out a month ago.
Oh, damn.
Because every time she's emotionally moved by the message that it sends and how she felt during it. And so I think that's what makes like these forms of art. And even like you talk about even like video games. We haven't touched on many video games here, but like so many more video games are so cinematic now, and they're just so immersive in the story. We'll talk about the big ones like The Last of Us or Elden Ring or like all these cinematic video games. But I remember last year I took some time off from work to play The Legend of Zelda: Tears of the Kingdom. And if you haven't played that game, essentially what happened? Have you played that game?
Yes. I didn't get very far.
Okay, so at the midpoint of the game, you find out that the princess who you're trying to find.
This is a spoiler?
Yeah.
I'm not going to play it.
Okay, spoiler warning for Legend of Zelda: Tears of the Kingdom. The princess you're trying to find, you spend the whole game trying to find. She essentially turns herself into a dragon 3,000 years ago to repair this sword, which is the only weapon to kill the bad guy, essentially. And so there's a point in the movie where not the movie, the video game, where you look up and this dragon that's been circling you the whole game is the princess. And she's been waiting for this moment for 3,000 years until you can show up. And I was like, started to get a little teary. I was like, I can't believe she would do that. It's a video game. It's not real. And I'm like, I cannot believe she did that for me. As I'm holding this sword, and then you get pissed off. You're like, I'm going to go kill this guy. I'm going to kill him. You start marching toward the castle. You're not powered enough to go take on Ganondorf yet. But you felt something. Like you felt just, it's a video game, and you felt in my opinion, it's a beautiful form of art. You felt in that moment just so humbled that this princess would do this for you, and then pissed off to where you just want to take that sword and go kill the guy. And so that's why I think these conversations, like long story short, is going back in time and video games, all these different things.
Tears of the Kingdom.
Yeah. And then he cries. And then the story cry, the Link cries, and the dragon is sharing her story by crying. When she cries, her memories fall, land in a puddle. You go find them, and you get her memories. So you find out what the hell is going on. And I think that's why
That's pretty good storytelling.
Yeah, it's awesome. That's why I think these conversations are so important that we're going to have, these movies that we're going to see this year, these stories we explore, and these people that you meet, because you find, there's been movies that I've come out of where I'm just like, I just want to be a better human being. Like after watching, after this year, it's been a few years since I've rewatched like the Lord of the Rings series. God, man, you watch that show. And you're just like, these people are just good. There's no moral ambiguity about them. It's just, man, Samwise is just one loyal dude. And Aragorn just so brave. Like that dude at Rohan, you knew he was going to get slaughtered. He's teaching a 12-year-old kid how to swing a sword after coming out of the river and seeing that army. They're about to get fucked by that army. And he's just like, these are my people now. I'm sticking around. I'm just like, you just want to be, and then this is a whole different discussion that we could have of just what it means. You see someone like Aragorn, right? What a perfect example of healthy masculinity, to where that guy is strong as hell, brave as hell, kind. You watch those movies anytime that there's an underdog in a situation, whether it's Frodo, whether it's Arwen, whether it's the Rohirrim army, he's always on their side, always. And just kind. The way he talks to Arwen, the way he talks to Frodo, the way he treats the hobbits, he's always so kind, respectful. His love for the arts, like the guy during his coronation of king breaks into song. I mean, just a wonderful version of healthy masculinity, to where you leave my living room, to where I saw it, and I'm just like, I just want to be more like that guy. After what I saw in film, I just want to be better, just like him. And so I think that's why these stories that you discuss, these people that we meet, they're so important, because they help us to be better human beings. They help us to feel seen when, like a feeling that we can't even describe that we're feeling is shown to us on film. You just feel, it's just crazy.
Dude, while you're saying this is took me back to like this. God bless Emma Watson.
Okay.
There's a Hogwarts reunion on HBO Max a couple years ago, and they're talking about this thing, and Emma Watson has this amazing quote.
We'll end with this. We'll end with the quote.
of story. Let me look this up. Stories that make us feel something. Anyways, like I maybe I'll get this tattooed on me. This quote. Uh, um, oh, damn it, that's gonna drive me nuts. Um, oh, dude, this is it. There's something about Harry Potter that makes life richer. Like when things get really dark and times are really hard, stories give us places we can go. And when she said that in that thing, it just washed over me. It's like that's what I've desperately needed in my life is places where I can go when things get really dark, and hard, and so like I want to be a part of providing that for someone else. So Emma, if you're ever watching this, I know you just, at least according to the media, you just claimed that you're dating yourself. If you change your mind, I think you're incredible.
And please come on our podcast.
Yeah. So fantastic. But yeah, I mean, yeah, I like that summed up like why I do what I do.
Yeah, it's that's I think that sums up perfectly. Where those stories, they provide hope, they can provide clarity, they can help us feel seen while we're in that darkness, or in some cases make us glad that it's not even worse. Because there's some stories that you're like, you know what, maybe my life's not so bad.
Yeah.
So subscribe, tell your friends, and we will see you next time on the Locked Off Logic podcast.
Thanks for coming. And like we basically said we were going to end like a half an hour ago.
Yeah.
But look at us. Like we love this shit.
We love this shit.
So this is why. Anyways, thanks for tuning in, and be sure to tell someone that you love them.